right, welcome into the Questionable Podcast today. You got Meko. What's up?
That's good, man.
And Gionne.
Scotty's coming in hot today. I wonder why.
That's right, because Scotty Questions was at the game because Scotty Questions is the good luck charm. And now I have to go to every game. I just got to figure out how to get there. So anyways, I am very excited, as you can hear and see. But welcome and please like, follow, subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts, to the Questionable Podcast. Also hop over to questionabletees.com because we have new stuff popping up every week. We just popped the new Rodrigo tee. So if you haven't seen that, please go check it out. We got the Hockamania 2.0 that was out last week. And we have, obviously, the Motor City Dan Campbell Tour shirt, Metallica inspired, which has been very consistent. We appreciate all your support. Everybody likes that shirt. Everybody likes that shirt.
Yeah, no, it's been flying. So
yeah, a little bit.
We need to start seeing them on the at the games. Like that would be dope. Is being able to catch a couple of those in the stands.
We will, based on what I'm seeing so far, I think we will. Which is cool. It was also cool. We were wearing the Motor City Dan Campbell tour shirt, kneecap noodle. That one still gets so much play. People love that one. They really. So that one I handed out like, I don't know, 7-8 business cards, and it was all because of the kneecap noodle shirt. So that was interesting. And then once they saw the kneecap noodle, then like, what are you wearing? It's like, well, yeah, the cooler. They're like, that's cool too. So recently, people
who are you wearing?
Well, it's a
Scotty
good
on the red carpet.
Hey, no, just the sideline, John. Just the sideline. Okay,
So wait, because I saw you in the Jameson jersey. So did you have like the did you have that shirt underneath? And
1000%, yes. Yeah.
So you take it off once you.
Oh yeah. I almost wore 3 shirts and jersey. I was gonna wear Jamal, the Dan Campbell, or the Hockamania, and this one, and then my JMO jersey.
You were trying to get as many eyes on our apparel, and I appreciate it.
1000%. But I was told, now shout out to my sister-in-law Anna for getting us on the sideline pregame. So I'm going to talk real quick about that. But she was like, okay, my friends hooked it up. Don't, mess this up. Like, don't go hocking questionable tea stuff. I go, no problem. I'll just wear my jersey. So what she didn't know is I was going to put on every shirt we had underneath. So I tried, and I was like, this is way too hot. Like at that point, I would take it off and be gross and grosser and grossest. And I was like, okay, no, can't do it. So did not do that. However, again, we had a great time. Shout out to my sister-in-law. She hooked up. We were down on the sideline. For those that didn't check out our Instagram, I went live a couple times when I could. The service was terrible. Now I know that's dug out, but it was horrible. I couldn't go live. And maybe they're trying to do that, but we went live. Jamal was dancing right in front of us. He threw a ball. He threw the football to Mar. Mar threw it back. That was crazy. I got to meet Sheila. Talked to Sheila Fordham for 5 minutes.
4 to 5 minutes.
She gave me 5 minutes of her time. Yeah, it was great. I was very excited about the team. And real quick, I told her, like, hey, I appreciate what you're doing, what you've done, everyone you put in place here in their positions. And I was fortunate enough to meet Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes at the Grand Prix last year and talk to them both and really got to know them for a little bit. And I just really was, thankful for what she's doing and appreciative of what's going on. And we were hoping for the best. And then she asked what I did. I was like, no way. Want to know what we do? So I told her, I'm like, yeah, I work with this company. We do some of your custom decoration stairs. But my passion is the company that we've started called Questionable Tees. And we support those athletes and just people that dare to be questionable, dare to do what they know is right. And she loved the story. She loved she thought it was great, the whole thing. Now, no sales were made. I just explained what we did. If Anna's listening, nothing happened. but anyway, it's very, very cool to get a couple minutes with her. We also got interviewed by a YouTuber that Tailgate Wins. I forget. We got to check it out, but he interviewed us and checked out the shirt. And so that was cool. So nice to meet him. Nice guy. And yeah, we got there. We were there for about an hour before an hour. We were there at the sideline for an hour, and then 30 minutes before the game, we had to leave.
Gotcha.
But that was like the best time too. It was so annoying. They're like, "Oh, I got to go." I'm like, but they're now like really out here. We were out in front of the Commanders, so it was.
I wonder if that was the reason why you guys had to get off the field so soon, because it's like, well, we don't need you guys hawking crap at.
Yeah. I don't know, man. They were massive, so I don't know that I would do anything to mess with any of those humans. And I was hard pressed to think they were humans. Sometimes there was like, Chase Young.
Yeah.
Is massive. Like he did not look he's just, I mean, he was like probably 6-8 feet away standing in front of us, and I was like, I was speechless. I can't even talk now about it. I don't, there's no words for this. You go, you look on TV like, oh, they don't look that big. You're down on the field, I'm like, hi, how are you? It was otherworldly. So anyway, that was
I mean, yeah, he's 6'5", 265. So I mean, yeah, that's a massive human being.
But even then, I would think he's like 6'7" and looking at. I mean, he just feels that much bigger, right? Like but he's just wide too. Like it was, and I'm not a small dude, so it's not like I'm like. It's just they are genetics. Like I mean, just I don't know. Their genetics are out of this world. It's crazy, and the way they're hitting too, it sounded like a car wreck every time they hit. So anyway, the warm up happened. Pregame happened. We up to our seats. We had some pretty good seats. We're behind the Lions bench. It was cool, like 18 rows up. And every hit, like that first hit on Hutchinson, I could hear him gasp. It's like, okay, this is like a little scary. Is he okay?
Oh wow.
Yeah, but anyway, the fans were great. I saw a lot of cool Lions stuff, a lot of cool Lions apparel, inspiration. I mean, clearly our stuff is still the best of everything I've seen when I was at the game. I mean, shout out to the Lions and what they do, but like now what we're doing here is different. It's cool. It's unique. If you want to stand out, visit questionabletees.com. So anyway, that's the shout out. That's it. And I am the good luck charm. You're going to have to hear it again and again. So every game I go to, I mean, I think we should win. So I better show up on Thanksgiving, huh? Bills game?
No, I think you can find better. After what I watched last night, there are better things to do than to go to that game, because that game.
Well, if they need a good luck charm, that would be the day, though, right?
No, if they need a good luck charm, Jesus needs to come down and play quarterback that day. That's the only way I can see them beating Josh Allen. Like so.
Totally fair. So anyway, overall, that was it. Summer, the fans were great. The experience was great. Stayed the entire game. Getting out of there was a nightmare, but I had to experience the whole thing. Also, shout out to DJ Yarig, who is the DJ for the Lions. He DJ'd the shit out of that game. Like every song was better than the next. It was amazing. I gotta get that playlist. I was trying to Shazam it, but like. I mean, in there, I couldn't even like send a text. I had like there were people I'm trying to text. I can't even get a text out.
Look, it's so many people in that stadium that are trying to use the same Wi-Fi. Like there's no wonder why there's not great reception.
I hopped off Wi-Fi. I'm like, this is pointless. But again, it's dug out too, so you're like down in the ground. Clearly, they didn't think about what cellular service. So. That is Scotty Questions reporting live from Sunday afternoon. So the Lions beat the Commanders 36-27, right? So, Meko, what were I guess the things like, what does this win signal to you, Meko?
This win signals to me that what Dan Campbell has been preaching all offseason actually works. I think like with this team, there has been so much talk in the off season, there's been so much like rah stuff that like for me, like I need to see it work though. It all sounds great coming out of Dan's mouth when he's standing in front of the podium, when he's in the locker room, like everything sounds great, but it has to work. Everything, it can't continue to be like Dan says this or the players are saying this, but then they're constantly coming up short. Like that, those two things don't add up to me. And so seeing them win and seeing them be this dominant from the kickoff, to see Deandre Swift tough out an injury and still be dominant and still impose his will on the game, to see Jared Goff, put together a pretty complete game and things of that nature for the defense to show up. It's like, okay, everybody is getting the message and they are listening. I think John pointed this out at one point in time about how this whole adage, or how the coaches sometimes point out, like, we try to teach them fundamentals and we try to tell them like, stick to the fundamentals. And then occasionally here and there, players kind of get away from it and they do their own thing. It's good to know that when the coaches bring this back to them and they show it to them on tape, like, do you see where you went wrong? Do you see if you would have just stayed disciplined here, if you would have kept that attention to detail here, that the game is entirely different, that the plays flow and they'll come to you. And I think that's what stands out to me, is that like the messages that these coaches are teaching and preaching are definitely like landing home with the players.
I agree 100%. Gionne, what do you think?
I think the signals that I was right about everything.
Oh my gosh.
No. First of all, I would like to say, we talk a lot. I am quite the apologist for this team, and it hit me Sunday afternoon when I was talking. I think it was you, Scott. It just felt so good to be talking about the parts of the game that we liked, instead of trying to find silver linings, coming up with like, oh, well, the context was such that, we probably weren't going to win. And just none of that. It was just like, we won and we won. And it felt so good. And I think that ties into Meko. Your point is that it finally showed out.
Well done.
Exactly. So no, it signals that I think this team is ready to take the next step. I think it signals that all of this talk about grit is not just talk. I mean, we did all of this with 3/5 of our O-line missing. I think that needs to be restated again and again and again. We only had two out of our 5 starting O-linemen were in this game, and Swift still had the game that he had. Jamal Williams still had the game he had. Scott, I love the way you said this, is that Jamal Williams gets the hardest yards in any game. Yeah. And like, because 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, short yardage, punch it up the gut, goal line situations, dude. He is asked to get the hardest, most grueling yards, and he does it. And I think it's great that saving his body, that's what we kind of put him in there for. But the old Lions blow this. Absolutely. That's another thing that this signals to me, that this time we've been saying it feels different, but this time it is different, because the old Lions would have lost that game in the same way that with I think it was last week with the Eagles, when they had those 2 false starts in a row and then they overcome it and they still score on that drive. They end up losing the game, but they scored on that drive. And that was great. And that was the grit that Campbell talks about. But when the Vikings made those halftime adjustments and they come back and...
You mean the Commanders?
What did I say? The Vikings?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Commanders, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what... Thanks. So when the Commanders came out and started moving down the field and started scoring and started, Carson Wentz, they made the adjustments. Carson Wentz started getting time, whether, I don't know enough that whether we changed scheme or they made some really savvy adjustments. I mean, it's the NFL. They're all fantastic athletes. So they scored, they pulled it within, I think 10 was the closest they ever got or 7.
7. Yeah, they got within 7.
Yeah. Patricia's
Yeah,
Lions lose that game 100%. That's because like we're up 22-0 and then lose the game. That was the story of the Patricia era. So to me, this signals that this time it really is different. It doesn't just feel different; it is different.
I agree, John, and I just don't think it's only the Patricia era, right?
Great. Yes. Yeah.
I think that we are breaking the chains here for a long time. I don't think like the levee has broke, right? I think this is a great start from the end of last season into these first 2 games. In my opinion, I think that we are headed the right direction, but we have a lot of work to do. I think the best way, Dan put it best at the end of the game in the locker room, like that's one. And I think as long as we all focus on that's one, hopefully more to come. I think that's the mentality they have to have, because we gotta, we'll get into that in a minute. We got a Minnesota game that I'm not really pumped that they got their butts kicked last night, because they're going to be not happy. So,
yeah,
but
I was gonna
go ahead.
I was gonna say like that's kind of why I mean, like Gionne, I hear what you're saying about like, well, this Lions team is different. This Lions team feels different. I'm still with it feels different. I'm still not sure if it is 1000% different, right? Because it's one. Like Scotty just said, Dan Campbell said it. It's just one. DeAndre Swift has said it. It's just one. Jared Goff, I heard him on an interview with 97 on the ticket today, and he's like, "Yo, we're 1-1." Like everything does still need to be put in that frame of context, even though they looked so imposing and a lot of things look to be working. But I'm still sitting here just like it's one, and I need to see. It's a lot of like what I said in the preseason after they had a really good showing against the Colts defensively, and I was like, I got to see it another week in a row. Like this defense has to do it twice. This offensive line, this makeshift offensive line has to do it twice, because otherwise it's just a flash in the pan. It's, oh, you caught a bad team off guard and basically like, hey, you won a game that we all said that you were supposed to win, which is great. But that is the reality of this. Like it does still feel different. I need like more evidence to believe like, no, this is 100% different.
Now, Meko, I'm with you, and that's where I was getting. But it does feel good to be talking about a win, because
Let's go. I said the Lions won a game. Man, we going all the way, baby. We about to celebrate because the Lions won a game.
So they did win, though, and it still feels good. But yes,
no, and it's
but I'm so excited. I don't know what to do. I'm torn. Like I'm so excited, but also like, okay, calm down, bro. But I'm so excited, but calm down.
Well, so I told Scotty like I wasn't nearly as excited as I thought I'd be. I was excited like in the moment. I think like the most excitement I had was the DeAndre Swift like catch, fall, and run.
Oh my god,
for the touchdown. God. That like, but like we all picked this team to win. We all said that the Lions should win this game. I picked them to win big. I was a little disappointed that they kind of let the Commanders back in the game in the second half, but like I just sat there and like they won, and I was like, all right, good. You gotta win. And it was like it was such a weird feeling, because I thought I would be more excited. I thought I would be jumping up and down, and it's just like I really did have this feeling of like, all right, it's one. It's one. Now, go out there and beat Minnesota, or go out there and not get embarrassed by Minnesota at the very least.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we were texting about this Monday morning, and I shared your sentiment about not being like uncontrollably excited, I think was the phrase. And I think it was because, and we can segue into this, is there was a lot of stuff to clean up. And I think Jared Goff said it after the Eagles game, we feel like we could have put up 50. They could have put up 50 this game too. And the fact that they didn't, like, they could have put up 50 and didn't against the Eagles, and they could have put up 50 and didn't against the Commanders. Like, I don't know if that's cause for concern or not, but it certainly goes to show that there is room to grow, because that was, maybe not concerning, but the fact that they left so many points on the field, whether Goff overthrowing or throwing behind or throwing low, or the drops again, or the offense or the defense seemingly letting its foot off the gas a little bit. It's just, I feel like there is room to grow. It wasn't like watching the Bills where it's just
No,
like
it was
no one
absolutely
can
not.
touch this team. There are definitely areas of vast improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the secondary in that second half, and Dan kind of pointed it out in his post-game presser, and he pointed it out again on Monday where he's like, yeah, there's just some miscommunication in the back end. And it's like, how many games are we gonna have to hear that where there's some sort of miscommunication on the back end, whether it be with the corners or the safeties? I know Amani wasn't playing, so Will Harris got to start. Jeff had to leave for a little bit because he had cramping issues again. But that can't continue to be the theme, because you're eventually going to find a team that's going to exploit those communication issues. And that's the thing that has me the most concerned. Is this was something that plagued them often last year. Somebody in the press conference like pointed that out, like, hey, you kind of mentioned these things last year. Is there a reoccurring theme? And Dan, to his credit, said it's not exactly the same. He was like, because last year there were times where guys weren't communicating, guys weren't saying things. And he feels like this time it's like your people are saying the things that need to be communicated, and the other player isn't listening. Well, that to me is almost even more damning in that situation, is that you're not paying attention. You're not taking cues from a Tracy Walker or a Deshaun Elliott, whoever is supposed to be captaining that defense and getting guys to where they need to be. Because this game, like I said, it ended up being so much closer than it needed to be. And it's not all on the defense, because the offense did stall as well again. But I look at the secondary, and we talked about this last week. I don't know for sure if there's a CB1 on this team, which means that everybody has to play up to that level, though. They have to play near perfect. And you can't do that if guys are not listening or not communicating properly.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, who stood out the most, I guess, to you, Meko, in regards to that, with the CBs? Like, who did stand out today? I know we're talking about the most concerned, but just real quick, I'm curious.
As far as like who stood out in a concerning way?
Well, yeah, yes, if that's what I was thinking, but
no, I think as far as like, again, defensively looking at the DBs, I'm always a little disappointed that not all of the corners play as physical as Jeff does at the line. So there's a lot of, again, Will Harris played a much better game than I think a lot of us would have thought once we knew that he was starting. He got a pick, and for the most part, he and Jeff and the rest of the DBs did a good job of keeping, their set of wide receivers, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson, like, kept them in check for at least a whole half. So, but I'm always a little disappointed when I'm not seeing the other corners be physical at the line, when you're seeing guys get free releases, and it's just like, put a hand on them, and at least not give them that free release. And like John said, I mean, you give a little bit of credit to Washington because they did make some adjustments. They started putting Curtis Samuel in the backfield and getting him out on linebackers, and that allowed for easy, catch and runs at times.
Yeah, I mean, it's way different. I haven't been to an NFL game in a while, and at the game, what's interesting is I get limited replays, and what's interesting is the names that were called all game long: Curtis Samuel, right, from them, and then Hutchinson, Rodrigo, amon-ra St. Brown, like Reynolds. Like, that was it. I mean, it was interesting. Like, that was it. I kept hearing that, and I don't know, man. I hear what you're saying, and I get that. I just, is this a Tracy Walker thing? I mean, is he need to be more assertive Is this a listening thing? I know that we're debating it a little bit. Like, could this be a Tracy Walker thing? I know Tracy Walker's really good, but is he not getting it out there early enough? Is he not?
I mean, according to Dan, no. This is a cornerback issue. This is a whoever he's communicating it to, like, not listening, not receiving that message of like, I'm going here. I need you to cover here.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I mean, it's certain things like that. I also think like the Lions didn't get nearly the same type of pressure that they were getting in the first half. So again, that also opened up a lot of passing lanes and a lot of more big play opportunities.
That's true. And I want to comment. Is that when Hutchinson got hurt at the end of the first half? When did Hutch get hurt?
Somewhere around like his third sack is when he got that Charlie horse, according to Dan.
Yeah. And then the second half, we didn't have that motor going. Go ahead, John.
Well, that is what has me most concerned is the secondary, because as we saw, as soon as the D-line wasn't getting as much pressure, then Carson Wentz and those receivers picked us apart. And that to me is the most concerning going forward, only because the guys who we have coming back, and we said we do sort of, in a manner of speaking, get reinforcements with Josh Pascal, Levi Onwuzurike, hopefully Romeo Okwara. We're not really getting reinforcements in the cornerbacks. Jerry Jacobs is coming back, but I don't think Jerry Jacobs is as big of an impact as maybe Josh Pascal or Levi Onwuzurike might be, or Romeo Okwara coming back. So there are fewer reinforcements coming in the secondary. So this team is pretty much going to have to live and die by its pass rush, which, I mean, it's a solid game plan. Like, if this is what you do well, then, you know, your quarterback can't get it to their elite receiver core if they don't have time to even look at them. So it was a solid game plan, and it was talking about what we have been talking about here. Like, how do you maximize your strengths and mitigate your weaknesses? And we've all said for a long time, I think the secondary, Meko even just said it, we don't really have a CB1. We have like 2 CB2s and a fairly weak linebacker core. Okay, so how do we mitigate that? Rush the hell out of the court, make the quarterback terrified.
Yeah.
And we did that for an entire half. And then as soon as we couldn't, then the weakness got exposed.
Do either of you have any concerns over, so I've seen this like show up quite a bit on Twitter, is people complaining about drops and, well, it's a mixture between drops and overthrows, right? Drops by the receivers and Goff missing a couple throws here and there. Either of you have like a huge concern when it comes to those two things?
I'm not sure it's a huge concern, but it is a concern because it is one of those things that when it happened week 1 and Dan Campbell's like, oh, you can blame it on first game jitters. You can blame it on, you know, we weren't as detail oriented. A lot of players were focused. They forgot the fundamentals and all of that pablum. But then to see it repeated again, just like you were saying earlier in the show, I need to see it again. And unfortunately, we saw those same mistakes again. And so I'm not concerned about it. I don't think it's a huge concern because Goff did look better this game than he did last game. So there was improvement, and I feel like the drops weren't as bad. Maybe I'm just viewing this through rose-colored glasses, or I'm like, there's recency bias, but they don't seem as bad. So I'm still concerned, but as long as we're improving, then I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, well, Scotty, go ahead first, and because I'll tell you guys why I don't think it's a big deal at all, in all honesty.
Okay, that's fine. I have my biggest problem with the drops it's not really drops. To me, the biggest problem I have right now is the relationship and connection between Goff and Hutchinson. That could not be further from like a connection. What I saw was those two on 2 different pages. And whether that's Goff throwing it behind him, in front of him, or Hawk not being where he's supposed to be, I don't know. I can't say. I know Hawk was sitting down in a couple spots, and they were just not on the same page, right? And that to me is the biggest flag right now of the offense, is that because Ben Johnson, I think, called a pretty good game. He got the ball in the hands of the playmakers we needed, and Amon-Ra St. Brown did okay. It was interesting to see he was mad about that out route. Was it out route that he dropped toward the end?
Yeah.
I mean, guys, just, and we can talk about records at some point, but that shout out to him. That was another great performance by him and Swifty. But to me, the drop, I don't like last season, right? I mean, if we go back to last season, Goff was again car crashed until later in the season. It took him a long time to warm up. I don't like that. Now, we saw a lot of people, a lot of teams, a lot of the top teams have rough starts last week. They all showed up right? They all got it together in 1 week. He's still working on warming up is what it feels like. I think that it doesn't really bother me about the overthrows and some of the drops. I think that'll get sorted out. It should. I hope it gets sorted out sooner rather than later, right? This can't be happening for like 6 games. But the first 2 games, okay. But again, the biggest issue I have is a Goff connection right now. So, Meko?
So,
I
don't think it's a big deal at all, right? I know currently if you go to NBC Sports, you can see like the league leaders in drops. And basically, if you do the math, if you count out every single drop amongst the players that they have listed, the Lions do lead the league in drops, right? They have 7 drops on the season. But when you start to like look at it, it's like, okay, TJ has 2. Everybody else has 1. So everyone else that you think should have caught a pass has been only credited with 1 drop. Now, you can look at that of one of 2 ways. Either you can look at that as the drops aren't that bad, right? It's not as concerning and as, flagrant as some people are making it out to be. Or you can look at it in a more pessimistic way and saying, well, Jared Goff is missing way too many throws then. And I think that could probably lean to what Scotty's saying as far as relationship and finding chemistry in some of these games. But overall, I don't think it is a huge concern. I do think Jared's going to settle in and those connections are going to start to thrive. I think in some situations, it's probably moving a little too fast because he's seeing how open some guys are. And so he's getting super excited about getting a ball somewhere that probably, like, if you just wait a half a beat, you can still make that throw and hit on target. But I think the reason that you're seeing people get up in arms about the drops is it's not the drops itself, is that like how catchable the ball looks. Like that is such a catchable ball, and then it gets dropped. And you're just like, oh, everyone starts becoming frustrated and upset about
Meko,
catch the ball. And
not all drops are created equal. So
well, I
like that.
Yeah. I think
an example of that. A lot of these drops. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I think that shows in the total, right? In the totals of how many drops each player has, is that some people are thinking that DJ Chark has more drops than he has. He has 1. Amon-Ra, you would have thought I thought Amon-Ra probably had like 2. No, he has 1. TJ, again, is the one that a lot of people are harping on. You would think TJ had 5 drops at this point. Like, no, he has 2. The statisticians are basically saying there were 2 passes that TJ should have caught that he didn't. And for the simple fact that that's 1 more than everybody else, I don't feel like that's a reason to freak out, right? Deandre dropped one that I thought was very catchable week 1. So it's one of those things that I do. I think they'll figure it out. I think it'll get worked out, and you'll start to see those connections get made. They started to get made later in the game when Jared found Hawk over the middle, and it was a great throw, a great read. So I do think people gotta. That was last week that he had a diving one. I think he had this one where he threw it high over the middle, and TJ kind of had to jump to get it.
Yeah, he extended, but I don't think he had to dive for it.
Full extent, no.
But it was a good.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was good placement. Like in a situation like that, like I remember talking to somebody on Twitter about this, about the Josh Reynolds catch last week, and it was like, oh well, it was a perfect throw, and it's like it's not though. If you have to fully extend in a situation where a defender isn't on your hip, why are you leading someone that far? Hit them in the chest. Yeah. So I don't think it's a huge deal. I think, again, of the things that are being concerning, I think we all kind of agree it is kind of on the secondary at this point. but I think
Yeah, I'm with
to
it.
make it back on a more positive note, right? So we know the things that are kind of concerning, but I mean, we also got to admit there were some bright spots. There were some bright spots. There were some stars in this game.
I guess.
If you had a if you had a game ball, or if you could, basically highlight a star of this game of your own, like who would you pick? Who would you be picking from this game?
Woo. Gionne, go ahead, unless you want me to go.
I mean, as always, I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say every time. No, I'm going to say the backup O-line, the Dan Skipper, Evan Brown, and was Eze in there? I feel like
No.
no. Who was the other one?
He was not. He was
Stenberg.
not
Stenberg. Yeah, it was the law firm of Skipper, Brown, and Stenberg.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my!
According to Baldy.
Where is that key? Oh
That's
my!
great.
Write that down.
No, yeah. So I think they deserve all the credit in the world, man. Again, 3/5 of the O-line was out. They stepped up and they gave Goff time. He put up again. We put up 36 points. Swift had massive just lanes to run in. Jamal Williams had lanes to run in. Craig Reynolds came in for a hot second, and he performed well. I mean, because Skipper did not look good in the preseason, as evidenced by the fact that he got cut. And the fact that he came out and came back and played as well as he did, I encourage everyone to go watch the Baldy's breakdown. He did one of the Lions, and he gave a special shout out to Skipper. Deandre Swift's 50-yard run was because of a block by Dan Skipper.
Yeah, a good one too.
Like a great one.
Yeah.
And so I think the game ball, Campbell called him out, and it was one of the most heartbreaking. I mean, I was getting choked up. I wasn't crying. You were crying. In the locker room after, when Dan Campbell specifically called out Dan Skipper, and the whole locker room was on skip. I mean, it was just a very wholesome moment. And again, talk about the culture, the team, the identity, the camaraderie, all of the positive accolades that you want to talk about. That was just, you love to see it.
Scotty, who you giving your game ball to?
Oof. So, to John's, I'm going to give John a nod here on that. I agree with that, but Hank Fraley.
Oh,
getting this. Why didn't Hank Fraley get a game ball?
Guys, just trying to big league me, man. You just like, I'm going to take John's point and just make it even smarter. I'm just going to like stiff arm John.
I did. No, but to your point, yeah, I mean, yes, those guys and Skipper and all that, but Fraley got it together. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Goodness knows what he had to do and what he went through the week up to the game. Like come on. So to me, it kind of goes there. That's kind of a deep cut, right? I want to say Amon-Ra St. Brown, because when we were struggling after halftime, they scored 14 points and the stadium was silent. Like everyone was like, oh no, here we go again.
It started to have a familiar feeling to it.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there like, don't tell me I'm at this game and this is gonna happen. So anyway, but that again, maybe play call and Johnson, like whatever it was, they got the ball in the hands of our playmakers. And I think that's also something I want to say. So I think it's, Fraley is really my star of the game, but I think it's our playmakers. And for the first time, I feel like we have actual playmakers, right? Amon-Ra, Swift, catching that ball, landing on his back because Goff was going to get destroyed, and then making a 15-yard run and beating 3 guys. I mean, just the playmakers made the plays that we needed to have us win the game. I mean, that hasn't happened before. I mean, I cannot remember. I think Calvin Johnson, Stafford to Calvin, right, was the last time we had a team.
Golden Tate and Marvin Jones were really good.
Yeah, but then to Scott's point, how many times did we see in those games that like one of those guys would get hot and then we would just stop going to them for whatever
I mean, off the top
reason?
of my head, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like, I don't know. I mean, to say that it's like, I'm just saying, to say to go all the way back to Calvin, I think is being a little disrespectful to what Golden Tate and Golden Tate and Marvin Jones made some big catches in a lot of those games and
That's fair.
to help the
Okay.
Lions win some of the games that they won. So
Fine. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. But then I feel like to then back up Scott's point, like I feel like how many times I watched the Lions and we're like, oh my God, we actually have this is actually doing really well. And then they just and it was torching the defense in the first half. And then Joe Lombardi would just stop doing that thing in the second half.
yeah, but I don't think but then I think that's play calling. That's not
Right. Yeah.
playmakers.
No, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
So-
that's yeah.
That's fair. I think Meko, that's totally fair. And I appreciate that. And yes, okay. So shout out apologies to Golden Tate and Marvin Jones.
Big listener of the
But-
show. Big
Yeah.
fan of the show. Golden Tate.
Guys, we'll make you some custom tees if you reach out. But my point is, it was nice to have those players and see that. So my star of the game is kind of a bunch of people because it kind of took the group, but really, Fraley was my star of the game. If I'm going to have to say that and end my point, and I apologize, it took longer.
So I'm gonna give my star of the game to Jared Goff. I believe that as hard as I've been on him last year, I think he deserves a lot of credit for putting together a very, very good game. Not a complete game, right? Not a perfect game, but
It's our guy.
we got to be honest, right? Amon-Ra doesn't have the game he has if Jared Goff is the one throwing him the ball and helping him
Right.
getting those passes to him. And it definitely is a tandem effect, but Jared didn't he wasn't just along for the ride in a game like this. It wasn't like Swift or Williams or the running game was the one carrying them all the way, and then Jared's just, getting a touchdown pass here or a touchdown pass here. Like, no, he was actually helping them move the ball down the field a lot of this game. And so I do think he deserves a lot of credit for hanging in the pocket, making tough throws, taking a sack when he had to take a sack and not, trying to escape a sack. Just take the sack and live to fight another series, live to fight another down. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for helping Amon-Ra to have the game that he has. Again, he had a couple drops. He did have a couple misreads where you kind of you feel like he probably predetermined a throw or predetermined a route that he wanted to throw at. But again, he made the plays that he needed to make. He helped them to be in position to win this game. And then when the Commanders started to make a comeback, he was also one of the big reasons that they were able to stand out and come out over top. I think, again, we didn't mention Aiden Hutchinson, which I feel bad about that because I think he had a monster of a game. And when I mentioned earlier that the pass rush started to kind of get stale, it is around the same time that he got hurt and the same time that he starts limping around, which we didn't talk about it, but I guess that could also be a point of concern, is that if it's not Aiden, then who?
Right.
I think Julian will eventually get there. I think Julian had a good game despite not necessarily generating a sack for himself, but he did create a lot of pressure. And I think as he gets acclimated again, he'll be in the mix of, creating a lot of havoc in the backfield. But don't want to end this segment without also pointing out that Aiden deserves a huge amount of love and, acknowledgement for the performance that he put on, especially in that first half, and for gutting it out when he was hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I think to show just how important that is, I think if we're not up 22-0, that game, I think, turns out much differently. Because they came roaring back. They scored 14 quick points on us to start the second half. And if we didn't have that cushion, then I think that game, maybe that sinking feeling turned into a reality. If we didn't have the cushion that we did, thanks wholly to the performance of the D-line. I also wanted one quick thing before we move on. That Amon-Ra play
the end
was Yeah, that was so amazing because that was one of the ones that made me think of football as like it was a slap across the face, and that no, this is a chess match. Because as soon as I saw that happen, the light bulb went off, and it was like, oh, they've been setting this up since the first drive,
Yeah.
and they've had him in motion ever since the opening drive, and it's like, okay, now we need it. They've scored 14 points. The crowd's out of it. We need a big play. You dial that one up, and no one saw it coming. Cephas gave a pretty good block. And yeah, he was just gone. And boom, we're right back in it. So that was very cool. Like it was just, man, like this really at this level, this really is just a chess match. It was great to see it on that level.
No, Scotty and I talked about that, and it's one of those things, like you said, it's a chess match, not just in a single game, but also in, again, a season, right?
Mhm.
Like if you go back and you watch Lions games, they do use a lot of motion, especially sending Amon-Ra in motion quite often, or sending the running backs in motion, or sending the tight ends in motion. There's a lot of movement that is incorporated in this offense. And now that you've put it on tape, well, now you have to be concerned about it at every opportunity. Like they've done some flea flickers, they've done some double passes. Well, now you got to be worried about it whenever you see someone get handed it or get the ball handed off in the backfield. So it's like, is this going to be a trick play? Are they actually going to punt it because it's 4th and 1? Like you don't know these things because they've put it on tape and they have at least showed you that, yo, they have the balls to call these plays when necessary.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then what has me really excited about that is what Dan Campbell said in his presser when asked about that play and about the dynamicism of their athletes in Swift being able to be a running back and a pass catcher. Dynamism is it anyway, regardless. Scott's laughing at me.
I don't know. I like literally the minute you said the word, I just thought of like we need to just have like a bubble that pops up when Gionne uses like words that the average person doesn't use in their English vocabulary, and just like,
well, but then you'd realize that I'm just making up half of them. So that'd be bad.
Oh, then I will call you out for that. Like the bubble would pop up and be like
bubbles, the bubbles popping up.
The bubble would pop up and be like, John literally made this up on the spot.
This man's a fraud. So Campbell said
alert.
About that. So Campbell said about that, he said, quote, when you've got a wide receiver in Saint who can also produce out of the backfield, which is something we haven't really tapped into yet, there's a number of things we will be able to do. And the end quote. So the fact that he says, which we haven't really even tapped into, has me very excited that they might start scheming up amon-ra St. Brown out of the backfield. I mean, what an absolute, like Deandre Swift lined up like a wide receiver and amon-ra St. Brown is the backfield. Like,
when he said that, the first thing that came to mind was that they haven't employed yet this season, because we saw Amon-Ra take carries last year.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot all about that. So yeah, and I mean,
on top of that, right, we forget a little certain somebody. JMO is coming back. So,
oh my God.
I mean, like that's the other thing you have to understand. Like that I was thinking about when you see these end arounds and these plays, like you'll have Amon-Ra and Jameson like crossing. Like, who are you going to pick? Like, good luck.
Well, that was something you said, Scotty. That was something you said when we talked on Sunday. It's like if that exact same play that Amon-Ra did,
James was in the end zone.
Yeah. Jameson Williams in the end zone. No one's catching him. No one's catching him.
And then real quick, I do want to hop back to Meko's point about Goff. I appreciate that. Goff, he did have a game. I thought that his fourth quarter was, per Jeremy's quote, electric. And I would agree with that. In the fourth quarter, in order to get it done, I thought that he did get it done. So I'll give you that too. And then Aiden and Rodrigo, to your point is, I mean, we should talk about the records, I think, before we close today about that. Aiden set a record. Amon-Ra St. Brown tied a record, but has a chance to break an NFL record. But yeah, I mean, it is certainly something that we need to appreciate for sure.
Scott, what was your prediction for Hutchinson? 15 sacks in the season?
I think it was something.
Was it 15?
It was like, yeah, I think it was 15 because I think the record is 14
Yeah, and we're week 2 and he's
Record is
1/5 the way there.
Yeah, it was the record's 14.5, I
for a
believe.
rookie.
But yeah,
For
so you said
rookies.
15 and it's week 2 and you're 1/5 the way there.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, not about my quote. It's just about like if he has, I mean, if he's consistent here on out, right? He's got to have a couple really good games, which he could. I'm not trying to get my hopes up, but there's a chance. I mean, he could get up there and be a part of that group, right? Like we talked about,
Yeah.
in which we talked to Luke about. We got to get Luke back on too if this gets to where it's going.
Yeah.
That'd be funny. But lastly, what I want to say, Meko, is to your point about Aiden. I just want to throw in Rodrigo because every defensive play, all I heard was Aiden Hutchinson and Rodrigo, like for tackles, and I was like, is that the only people playing defense? And my Spall, who was there in from out of town, Bills fan, shout out Matty Spall. I said, what's your biggest takeaway from the Lions? So like what his star of the game would be is he's like, dude, your defense is unbelievable. And I'm like, that was like a giant question mark coming into the season. Was our defense? He goes, your defense is so, I mean, your two, like he goes, the two rookies were like, they were amazing. They were everywhere around the ball. So that was from somebody who was like no investment in the Lions. He's a Bills fan. He could care less.
Lives in Buffalo.
Lives in upstate New York, and yeah, he could care, but he was like, your defense. I mean, your offense is great, but he was your defense. And that was interesting. I thought I would share that with you guys.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good transition though into like the next topic though, which is like, I mean, again, the defense showed up, but it's like with keeping that in mind, and as we try to transition into the Lions matchup this week against the Minnesota Vikings, I mean, what do the Lions have to do in order to beat the Vikings this week? What is the number one thing on your list that like you need to see this team do?
Put Cousins on his back. He's got it. Like Cousins has to have the fear of God, which I mean, yeah, which Cousins always has the fear of God in his heart, but it seems like he needs to fear Okwara, Hutchinson, and Harris. I mean, we saw that, like he's throwing ducks. And like, I don't want to give Justin Jefferson the opportunity to beat us because he's going to. We saw like Terry McLaurin was beating us. Jahan Dotson was beating us. Justin Jefferson is going to destroy us. So don't even give him that chance. Put Kirk Cousins on the turf. Do what you did the first half, and this game is winnable. Because I don't think it really doesn't seem like Dalvin Cook is. Maybe he had a bad game, but I mean he's still pretty. I mean he's still Cook, but it really seems like this is not the Dalvin Cook of 2-3 years ago.
I mean, yeah. I mean, speaking of Dalvin Cook, right? So through 2 games, he has 107 total yards.
Yeah,
rushing. Like, granted, so 90 against Green Bay and then only 17 against the Eagles. I was gonna say, like in that case, like looking at that, like that's what I believe has to be the recipe. Like you have to make this team one-dimensional, and I feel like it starts with stopping the run. They've done it. They did it against the Commanders where they were limiting the effectiveness of Antonio Gibson, of J.D. McKissick.
Yeah.
And once you start doing that, then the only alternative, like you're saying, Gionne, is that like, well, then Cousins now has to drop back and pass. And he's not mobile. And so if you know where he's going to be and you can just keep collapsing the pocket, if you can send an extra linebacker on a blitz here and there, then maybe you can put that fear of God in him where he's seeing ghost or he's just getting touched a few too many times. And then you start to have a chance defensively to contain that offense. But I do think it actually has to, like, they have to be focused on containing Dalvin Cook. Because if he gets going, then you open up the door of play action pass. And if we're already having communication issues on the back end, do you really want to like have that secondary deal with play action pass and hoping that nobody's biting on the run?
Yeah. I don't. No, thank you.
I definitely don't. I'll pass.
It's like when a waiter asks me if I want pepper on my salad. No, thank you.
Wait, you don't like pepper in your salad? What's wrong with you?
No, I don't
my
actually.
God.
It's actually really good.
It
It's
is really
underrated.
good. I'm with Meko on that. It is good.
Scotty, what do you got? What do the
All
Lions
right.
have to do in this game?
All right. So mine, two-part answer. First part is I want to talk a little bit about the Eagles versus Vikings game and how the Eagles did stop Cook, right? They did stop that part of the game, and they did not stop that against us, correct? Against the Lions, right? We
Correct.
ran it pretty well against them.
Very good. Yeah, great point. Yeah.
Correct. So
I mean, we
what
did all
they did
right.
is, what's up? We did all
So we
right.
did all right.
All right.
140 yards from Deandre Swift, like nothing major.
144, sir.
Yeah.
So
Chump change.
so
Yeah.
and again, what I'm you'll see what I'm getting at in a second here. So that was away, and then they went home, they locked it up, no running, they got after Kirk Cousins, right? And then they were able to shut down. I mean, Slay shut it down. Like, let's be honest, Slay had a game. He had a
Yeah.
game. He had 2 picks. Like, he was at home living his best life, and good for him. And that
Yeah.
moment, I'm like, why do we not have him? Like, what, like.
We all know the
Anyway.
answer.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's just
Grimace in human
kind of-
form. That's what.
yeah, that was tough to watch him. I'm like, he was on our team. So anyway, having said that, right? So then think about too, the Vikings, beat up the Packers, did their thing, tried to do the same thing at the Eagles. That did not happen, right? So now I did not want this. I did not want Vikings to get. I was hoping it'd be close and like, okay, like something like that, not get destroyed, because they're going to be upset. They're going to go back to the drawing board, and they're really going to try hard this weekend. Not that they wouldn't, but this is really going to be a circled game. Like this is a must win for the Vikings, right? If you think about, if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm like, oh, we got to beat the Lions. Like, oh, they're really not that good, whatever. And so this is circled, and it's also a home game. It's also our first away game. Right. So that's also a concern for me. Thankfully, I talked to Meko. I thought they were still outdoors there in the stadium. So that's good. So it's still on turf, and that we should travel well enough for the turf. So that's a good thing. So, but the Lions must get pressure on Kirk Cousins, stop the run, pressure on Kirk Cousins. He's not Mo, and we got to get after him. I mean, that's it. Because if Kirk, again, to all of our points on the same thing, we have to be able to do that. And on top of that, we have to, on our offense, we have to score touchdowns. We got to score probably 30 points again. We have to get there. Like we have to give ourselves some buffer. They're going to come back. Adam Thielen is like 100 years old, but he still can do some stuff. I mean, like, I think that we really do have to get after Kirk. If you can, yes, you will see goes. He'll throw it into coverage. We can get, another pick. I mean, goodness gracious, they're picking 2 games in a row. When last time that happened?
I mean, I think
when we had Slay, maybe.
I was gonna say
that's where I was going.
Exactly.
That's where I was going, but I was trying not to,
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, like I said, I think whether it's the pass rush or whether it's stopping the run, I think it's all going to lead to, like, yes, you gotta get to Kirk Cousins when you can. And I think the Lions can, I think they've shown that they can do that. Like, my whole thing is I hope they don't become stagnant and just think like, oh, well, we can just get there with 4 every time. Because I don't think you can. I don't think in today's league that you can just hope that 4 get there and try to play prevent because you're worried about what Justin Jefferson's going to do to you over the middle or any of the other receiving options. Like, just get after him, speed up his internal clock, and then see what happens. But
right.
I mean, again, I still do feel like it's going to be a Dalvin Cook type game because he and Justin Jefferson both, yes, did struggle, but Dalvin suffered more. So that's why I think you'll get like running angry.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that, fingers crossed, we have the as we said about the Lions in game 1, let's hope that they're so eager to have a good game, a big game, their egos take over and those fundamentals go out the window. That would just be ideal. And
that they try to fight the narrative.
Yeah. and that they end up overcorrecting, overcompensating, however you want to say it. And those fundamentals go out the window. Meanwhile, we're just cool as cucumbers and just
Right.
slicing
And
and
then
dicing.
Meko, did you want to mention anything about injuries?
Finish him.
No,
Okay.
no, I don't.
Not
I'm not mentioning anything.
I'm not going there either.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
No,
Gionne's not allowed to talk about injuries for the rest of the season.
Fair enough. I will accept that.
Okay, then.
Fatality.
If you don't understand why, context, Big Mouth McGee over here. After the Lions lose to the Eagles, comes onto the podcast. It was like, well, hey, we got out the game with no injuries. Wednesday comes around. Jonah Jackson's probably not playing. Frank's out of the game.
Or Amani's
dealing with something. Like, oh. And then Sunday rolls around, and then like it just so happened, like it settled in my spirit, and I was like, this is John's fault.
I wish I had that power.
I don't. I wish you would understand how to control that.
Well, then it will be if I had the power. But if I had the power, though, through trial and error, I could learn how to harness it, and I could do like an opposite I could do like an opposit day, Freaky Friday.
Why don't you just say, thank goodness, Vikings.
See, you're assuming in this situation that your powers work in the way of like you can prevent injuries. I think your powers work in the sense that they only cause them.
That's fair. Okay, that's okay.
But speaking of that,
I love that we're talking about that we have powers. Like, I just love that. Like we're talking about that we have powers. So
this is what we talk about when the Lions win a game. This is where we go.
Yeah, this is how things become a little bit more lighthearted.
Yeah.
I said the Lions won a game. Man, we going all the way. We about to celebrate.
Put that on the tee for you.
But in order for the Lions to win this next game, then I think we also have to talk about then who needs to have the biggest game for the Lions specifically. Because all right, we know we've all pretty much said that like it's a combination between stopping Kirk Cousins and stopping the run for them to beat the Vikings. But in order for that to happen, who do we think needs to have the biggest game as well for them to come out with that win?
I feel like I always go first, so I'm gonna.
Scotty, you go first then.
Fine, John.
Or if you want me to go first, I'll go first.
This is my answer.
Okay, well, I'll give Scott's answer for him. He's gonna say Todd Wash. Todd Wash has to have the biggest game for the Lions.
Another coach.
Yeah, the D-line coach.
Hey, maybe he should. Who needs to have the biggest game for the Lions? Ooh, boy. I think, oh man, it's asking a lot of the defense. It's really going to be up to the defense. We got to score points, but yeah, the D's got to do it again, man. They really do. They're going to have to get at Kirk Cousins to keep him under 30 some points, because I think that we can score 30, 34 points on Minnesota if we can get the run game going. Again, I know I said Swift had to show up this week, and he did with 5 carries.
7 total touches.
Carries. My gosh, but like 4 of his 5 touches were unbelievable.
There was one point in the game where the Washington Commanders had 14 total yards, and Deandre Swift was averaging 18.7 yards a carry.
Yeah. That's a great stat. Crack research team over here.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
Your favorite guy.
Oh no.
God, I don't feel like I have a good answer. I think that who needs to have the biggest game for the Lions? I feel like this is a cop-out. I don't want to be a cop-out, but I feel like the entire team needs to show up. It's an away game.
It's a cop-out. I'm calling it now. You just said the entire team
needs to show up. Okay, but what one player needs to have the biggest game for the Lions?
Yeah. There's 52 guys. Pick a guy.
Jared Goff.
Damn it.
Fine.
That's who I was going to say.
Jared Goff, because he needs to, again, stay in the pocket. fight through the pressure that they're going to give him, because what we're saying about Kirk Cousins, same thing they're saying about Goff. You got to get after him. You got to make him uncomfortable. But Goff made a couple throws on Sunday that were under pressure. They weren't perfect, but they got there. So I think that's, to me, Jared Goff's going to have to sit in the pocket and make those plays. And again, I don't know who our O-line is going to be, right? We don't have the injury report yet. So that'll be interesting too, as we get through the week, who is playing. So I'm going to say Jared Goff.
I'm going to say
Gionne?
Jared Goff, but for better reasons.
Oh man.
Let's check out his list. So I was totally ready to answer.
Let him talk. I'm just going to play it like 10 times in a row.
I was totally ready to answer this question, Aiden Hutchinson. But then as I started thinking about it, realizing what happened against the Commanders is we had a 22-point cushion. And that, I think, is what won us the game, is that we put up so many points that even when we did that thing that Dan Campbell told, we dragged them out to the deep end. We got up on them so well, and then they started to come back, and we kept getting enough points to maintain that lead, and they just ran out of time, and they could never come back. And so this defense has proven that it can get a strip sack. It can get a 3 and out. So just by they can get a safety. So by sheer force of will, this defensive line is capable of getting a 3 and out. And if the offense can keep putting up points, I think then it just becomes, catch us. So in that scenario, which I think is Dan Campbell, someone on a Reddit thread posted this, that sort of the style of play, and it's so, I think, typical of Dan Campbell's, is this high risk, high reward of we're going to come at you. And the AG said, we are an attack first style defense, and they're going to give up some big plays, but more often than not, we're going to get the strip sack. We're going to get you. We're going to get the sack, the loss of yards. We're going to put you at 3rd and 15. So I think we know now this defense is capable of doing that. We know the offense is capable of putting up 35, 36 points in 3 games in a row, going back to last season. So I think then this game kind of hinges on Jared Goff's ability to do what he did last week, elevate the people around him, and go forward down the field.
You were going so strong, and then you just like fizzled out at the end.
Forward down the field.
You like fizzled out at the end.
Yeah. Hopefully not what the Lions do.
So Meko, don't pull a Goff or a Gionne.
Well, no, I was all set to pick Jared Goff as well.
Oh, but we can't go triple threat on it. We could.
But the reason I'm not is because of things that you both kind of said, and it's the offense isn't the issue here. The offense is proven in the first 2 weeks of the season, they will show up. Now they will have lulls and they got to kind of dig themselves out of certain ditches at times. But I don't think I'm concerned about the offense. I'm not concerned that Jared Goff won't string together enough plays to keep this team fighting and in a position to win the game. What I am concerned about is the defense. And so that's why I am saying that the person that needs to have a big game and really needs to step up is Aiden Hutchinson, because you've done it. We gave you a pass in the first game. We were like, okay, jitters, mobile quarterback. We found every reason to say that to excuse why he didn't have the game that he should have had, or that we would have liked to see him have. You're getting the same type of quarterback. I told Scotty, like, this is Carson Wentz 2.0. And I mean that in like good and bad sense. Like, don't even think like, oh, because Carson Wentz, has typically sometimes been a train wreck. Like, no, Carson Wentz at sometimes plays at an MVP level where you're like, dude, that dude's really good.
Given the time, he picked us apart.
Yeah, he's also more mobile than Cousins. I mean, he had a couple runs. He stopped Rodrigo in his tracks, like Rodrigo whiffed.
Shook out of his shoes.
Whiffed on that. I was like, oh, I was waiting for Arrigo to destroy him, and I'm like, oh wait, what?
But I think Aiden needs to have that type of game. Again, pointing back to what happened in that second half of that Commanders game, once Aiden wasn't able to kind of collapse the pocket on his own from his side of the field and not really, like, you could see his motor started to kind of teeter down where he wasn't as relentless as he was in the first half. That defense starts to look different. That defensive front starts to look very, very different.
Yeah, it did.
And it's a lot to put on a rookie. It's a lot to put on a rookie in his first away game. But I think he's already shown that he can lead the charge in that capacity. So I'm looking at him as like, you've got to set the tone. You don't have to do it all game. It doesn't have to be another 3-sack performance, but you got to be the one that's collapsing the pocket, at least from your side, and causing Kirk to step up or to try to like escape from the backside or something along that nature, because I don't know that Charles Harris is going to do it consistently. I don't know if Julian Okwara is going to do it consistently. John Kaminsky's been really good, but again, it's a lot to ask from players like that. But I think it's going to have to be someone like Aiden, because when you look at Kirk Cousins' record, as much as we're saying like he played terrible last night, you know who he hasn't played terrible against?
The Lions?
Us.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is 7-2 against the Lions. So yeah, Aiden, you got to step up. You got to be the all-around defender that we drafted. You have to rush the quarterback. You have to stop the run. You have to be a force in the backfield at all times. In order for me to think that the Lions have a really good chance.
Meko, to that point, I think at least get him double teamed, right? At least make enough trouble that you're double teamed and give somebody else a chance, right? If you can start off hot, maybe they'll have to do that, right? Finally, after 2 games, you're gonna have to give him more attention, right? Than they would have.
And that's where it goes back to the whole statement where I had about, I hope they don't try to just rush with 4. Like, send the blitz occasionally, mix up some stunts, mix up some coverage packages. Yeah. Also, I did want to throw this in here. So, like I said, I was going to say Jared Goff. I eventually landed on Aiden Hutchinson, but another person, if I could just throw in a caveat, who needs to have a good game, doesn't need to be like the catalyst or the reason that they win, but he does need to have a good game. And I feel kind of bad for saying this, but Jeff Okudah needs to have another good performance. Jeff,
as soon as you said that was the name that I thought of. As soon as you're like, good, yeah, he's got to.
Jeff has to. Because
go ahead.
Well, because he's showing that he can, and the Lions are going to need someone on that back end to at least make it hard on Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying completely nullify him. I'm not saying that you can replicate what Slay did, play for play, but you can't let him go for like 140. You can't like have him going for over 120, 130 yards on that secondary, because the game is going to look very different if that's what's happening.
Like, he cannot get behind you. And Kudah's done a good job of not letting guys really get behind him, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know what the game plan is. I don't know if Amani's going to play. But after how Jeff has played in the first 2 weeks, that's who I would put on him. That's who I would have on Justin Jefferson is Jeff Okudah. At least to start the game and see if he can make it hard on him.
And Meko, I think why that's a great idea, and why, to support what you're saying is, for those that watched the game last night, Slay was all over Jefferson, and he was also physical on him the entire time. So to Meko's point earlier tonight about how Okudah is physical and he wants, Meko asking the others to be more physical, Okudah's the guy that's going to, push him at the line, and he's going to tangle up with him, right? Because Jefferson
exactly.
did not like that. Jefferson did not like that last night. He was complaining about about fouls for like 3 different times.
And that's another thing that the Lions are going to have to be aware of. Yeah, the Lions are going to have to be aware of that too, because I think, again, you're the away team. You're also the Lions. You're also the Lions, so you may get some ticky-tack fouls, but I think Jeff is going to have to bring that physicality that he's been bringing so far. Which again, we kind of glossed over a little bit, but Jeff did. He had another really good game.
Yep.
He did.
Terry
Grant again,
McLaurin,
though.
was it Terry McLaurin on him or Jahan Dotson who had like zero when Okudah was covering them, 0 receptions for 0 yards?
I want to say it was Dotson because I think I remember Terry McLaurin catching one on him.
Oh, okay.
I think that was like the first catch that Jeff had actually given up was against Terry McLaurin.
Which
So-
is fair. It's Terry McLaurin.
To answer your question, Meko, I'm going to go. Okudah was the first name I thought of as soon as you asked it, but just to be different, I'm going to say who needs to have a good game is Anzalone. He played
Ooh.
well. He
Okay.
played well game 1. Scott called him out, and it was great. It was a great call. It seems like he's sort of the general of that defense, certainly because you saw him going up and tapping guys on the side and pointing, kind of. I think he was telling him like this is the gap, and just kind of making sure that everyone knew what was going on at all times. And I think he had another really good game, as Shep said. He's got a fantastic mind for the game, but every problem with his game has always been like the physicality. And I think we saw against the Eagles, he was running down Jalen Hurts, and I think we saw against the Commanders, he played really well. It just seems like he's tougher now, and I think he's just a great mentor for Rodrigo. And I think if we have any chance at shutting down Dalvin Cook, it is with Anzalone being on top of the scheme and how they're trying to attack us with the run game.
Interesting.
I like it.
Yeah, what's funny to me is like last season, we're like, who is Anzalone and why is he here? And what's funny is
100%.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
what is he doing here, guy? He doesn't know what's going on. Look at the difference in one season from this time last year to this year. I mean, I don't even recognize the guy.
Shep.
And
That's
shout
Shep.
out to him, hard work, and to the coaching staff again, right? I mean,
All right. Well, this is where I'm gonna be a sourpuss on this one. I don't think he's also been
Right.
tested all that
That's
much.
fair.
That's fair.
Because his
You're
biggest
not a sourpuss.
deficiencies come in the passing game, and he just again right. We saw the type of clinic that they were putting on with the pass rush and getting the ball out of Wentz's hands really early, and then against the Eagles, I mean he may have been doing well in coverage. I don't know, but I mean he wasn't getting picked on, but also Jalen Hurts was also like running up the gut for
Right.
15 yards.
Mhm.
So Anzalone has played well. That's one of those eggs that I'm not counting too early though.
I
That one
think
needs
Anzalone
that one needs to
playing
hatch.
playing well for Anzalone. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
let's be right. He's
Yes.
playing well for Anzalone. He's not playing well. Like,
I mean, good for him because I don't think he's going to be
Right.
challenged for a while. I don't think there's a tight end that they're going to have to worry about. And I don't know, maybe they've taken that off his plate. Again, giving that responsibility to Rodrigo, who has a little bit more range and a little bit more sideline to sideline speed.
shout out to Rodrigo. Dude, I didn't know. New T, questionabletees.com. Check it out. Sweet. I didn't know that Rodrigo broke a visor week 1. Did we know this? I didn't know.
I did.
this.
Yeah, I heard
I
about that.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I missed that one. Scotty Questions, light to the party. Yeah, dude. Guys, I mean,
So
he's
are we
still-
ready? Are we ready? Oh, sorry. Let's go ahead.
No, it's just all I wanted to say is that through 2 games, the amount of tackles that he's like gotten, and like the fact that he's like almost in every play, it was amazing to see. The guy just has a neck for the game. He's always around the ball. And today I went through some of his old tape, and I went through the combine stuff, and just to see I just went through it all again. And it's just everyone's saying like he has a knack for where the play is going. He's always around the ball, and it's it's crazy that we got him in the 6th round. So knock on wood, but like that's so far so good. It's great. What, John?
Yeah.
So are we ready to predict? I feel like we were all right in a way. Meko called a blowout, and sure as shit, it was looking like
It was
a
a
blowout.
blowout first half.
Yeah.
First half blowout.
Scotty ended up being the closest. Scotty ended up being the closest with the
I thought you were the closest one.
31-27. Well, I called 31-21. Scott said 31-27. So
Ew.
That's a 4-point. Wait, that's 4.
yeah, but technically he was closer, I think, to the final score.
I think you're giving him too much credit for that.
What?
I'm going by like again difference in score, and I feel like John's closer, and like he had the Lions winning by 10 and they won by 9.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Meko. I was ready to cede that to Scott. Thank you.
And I'll take it. I'll still take it.
I mean, I feel like Scott got to go to the game, so
That's
you know,
true. Yeah.
he already got what he deserved.
Yeah, that's right. A win. Good luck, charm. All right, then John goes first since he was the winner.
I'm gonna say 35-27 Lions win. Shootout.
What?
Ooh.
Wait. Hold on, I gotta write this down. I'm writing this down.
I don't think it's that
35
ballsy of a claim. Like we scored over. This is the third game in a row where we've scored 34 or more points. It was 38-35 Eagles, 35-24 or 36-25, right?
Yeah.
Detroit Commanders. So, and like I said, the D-line has showed they can get a stop when they need to. This offense has shown that it can just be electric. And I think it really comes down to whoever gets the most stops, the most turnovers throughout the course of the game. And I can't believe I'm saying this, I trust our defense to do that 1 or 2 more times than I trust the Vikings defense to do that. So I think we win 35-27.
Interesting. Scotty?
Okay. Oh boy, I've been thinking about this all afternoon. Really not. I think it's tough. And I was thinking about this. I talked to Meko. If my life depended on it, if like you're going to die and you have to just pick a winner, like I was gonna pick the Vikings at home by a field goal. So that's it. But I think we have a real chance to win. I'm trying to balance this, like, what I want to happen, what's really going to happen. I think the Lions have a chance. I just think it's tough, their first road game.
You're thinking with your brain, and I need you to start thinking with your balls.
How was that? How was that even?
You go from the gut. You need, like, this is.
Does he have a hernia? Like what?
Yeah, right.
A hernia with a brain.
Oh man.
I'm saying the score is 38-35 Vikings.
Oh, Vikings. Repeat of the Philly. Interesting.
I don't want it, but I just
wait. Did you really pick the same score?
What?
Did you really pick the same score as the Philly game?
Yeah, 38-35. That's the same score.
Oh wow. Okay.
Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith, and Miles Sanders. I don't think the Vikings put anything up. I don't think the Vikings put that many points, but that's okay. Just jot it down. We'll see. We'll see Sunday.
Scotty, you sticking with that? Because I feel like you're like still contemplating.
I am. Meko, go. Give me a
wait.
second.
Hold on. I have a follow-up question for Scott.
Jesus.
I can see the wheels turning.
Was that the gun to your head prediction, or was that the?
No, that was the gun to his ball selection because you told him to think with his balls.
Okay. Yeah. Was that, did that prediction come from the end of a gun, or did it come from your balls?
Or the end of a scrotum,
end of from the bottom of a.
No, I think you guys are having really a lot of fun with this. No, I think that this is going to be a high scoring game. I know I think it's going to be a high scoring game. So I mean, that's I mean, gun to my head is what I said. Like, I think the Vikings win. Gun to my head, and I might die. But
What way to go?
in and out. It's
Oh man. I'll keep mine short and
Please.
sweet. I got Lions 31-27.
That was my 31-27. Okay.
yeah. Yours was 35-27. His
Okay.
is 31-27. Yeah, mine.
I love it. We're all predicting the shootout. Guns blazing.
I just think like I don't know if this team has quite yet figured out the whole once you have your foot on the neck to finish it.
That was disappointing. I thought if there was any coaching staff that would be able to like realize that it would be this one. But so that was a little like slit the throat, man.
Well, because so to John, your point, I think one thing that this offense will be able to continue to do, thanks to Ben Johnson, is that they will continue to start fast. Right? You were pointing out like how they need to start fast. I think Ben Johnson will continue to have them do that. I haven't seen a repeat of plays. I haven't seen a repeat of, I mean, except for like those lulls. Like they have these weird lulls where they don't score anything, and like those play calls have been kind of stale. But in some of those, it's also drop passes in some of those situations, or a bad decision by Jared Goff.
I think you're right. It's crucial drop passes in a drive, like the one play that we can count on. They drop.
Well, yeah, like there was a couple of those drives where they took a shot deep and they had it, and it's just like, well, if you catch that, then yeah, you're back in the red zone and you're probably scoring again. So, but I don't think it's for a lack of trying. I don't think this is a situation where, if we're going to talk about play calling in the past, there were play calls in the past that were just stale, and it was like, let's just be methodical, let's just milk a little clock, let's work our way down the field slowly. And it's like, I mean, Ben Johnson's like, nah, here's my nuts, put them in this wheelbarrow, go down the field.
Which I love. I mean, you gotta love that too.
Yeah, no, like that's what's going to keep this offense explosive. I think you look at the teams that have explosive offenses, and that's what they do. They don't try and ticky-tack you down the field. They're like, no, we're bombs away, and just try to stop it.
And that's why I keep going back to J-Mo. Now, I know he's not going to be a superhero and he's going to need some time to warm up, but like, I mean, come on. If we can get, and that's the other thing too, I'm actually kind of annoyed about. People have been saying like, oh, Goff doesn't have the arm to get it down. I'm like, yeah, he does. He's overthrowing everybody. What are you talking about? Like, what are you like? I've heard some of these like fans calling these different radio shows, and I'm like, they're like, he doesn't have the arm. I'm like, then why is he overthrowing people? Like, what? That makes no sense.
I would argue that he probably doesn't have command of his arm. Yeah. I don't think he has quite the command of it.
But if you think about it, sometimes Mahomes didn't either, but Tyreek Hill was so fast he could run, stop, catch it, go run again. Like he was so far in front of a wide receiver, he could stop, catch it, go again. I mean, I'm not saying that's Tyreek, but it's the closest thing we got.
No, I just think like I think there's certain quarterbacks where they just have that natural touch for the deep ball.
Aaron Rodgers.
Right. Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, like they just kind of have that feel for it, and it's just like, no, they know how to lay a deep ball in there.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
I had something at the tip of my tongue that I was gonna say, and I was like, I'll hold it.
What? Deep balls?
Yeah. Just like how I know how to lay them in.
Zing.
Oh, nope.
Finish him.
And finish her in most of those situations, but sure.
So they had that, and I didn't want to use it because so they have a finish him and a finish her, and I just didn't think
you didn't know when you would use it?
I just didn't.
Right there.
I had this whole debate in my head. Okay. All right. Anyway, I don't know where to go from there.
We go to bed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's what's up. Yeah. Good show. All right. I think that's about it. Again, please like, follow, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Please visit questionabletees.com or our Instagram and check out our new tee. We have another new t-shirt coming, 3 of the 7 coming this week, right? We're 2 in. We have a third coming. Very excited. Latest is Rodrigo. A lot of good feedback from Rodrigo immediately. So that's fun.
Yeah.
And
no, absolutely.
And yeah, so again, please and thank you everybody for following, for your comments, for your support, for everything. It's been great. It's been fun. I want to thank the fam. I want to thank all my friends. It was a great birthday weekend. I want to thank you too. Thank you guys for everything. And yeah, man, on to the next. Meko?
Yeah, definitely got to thank my wife and my girls. Thank you guys. Thank everybody that's been engaging with us on social media, commenting on the videos. We really do appreciate it. And yeah.
There it is. That's what I was waiting for. Thank you to my wife. And yeah, you guys, I always love game day. It's so great. Texting throughout the game, and then the debriefs afterwards. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, and as is this. So yeah, thank you guys and the fans. Including Golden Tate. I know we were texting earlier.
Right.
He's a huge fan of everything we do.
I had your back, Golden. I wasn't about to let them disrespect you.
That's very important. Yeah.
And I'm okay disrespecting.
Not to his face, though. That you went to his face.
No.
I still would.
Oh. No.
I still would. Anyway, we can end with this, but I think you guys, I think you know what I'm going to end with, right?
I do. I know what's coming.
Finish him.
Finish him. No. Just won a game. We did it. All right, we're 500. It's exciting. Hopefully, we can keep it going this weekend. So again, thank you all. This is Questionable Podcast out.